My mother-in-law accused me of cheating and said my newborn son couldn't be my husband's because he was ugly. I am 28 years old. I am married to Daniel, who is 30. We have been together for 3 years. Recently, we had our first child, a baby boy. We named him Oliver. What should have been the happiest moment of our lives turned into a nightmare because of my mother-in-law, Margaret. She is 55 years old. Margaret never liked me. When Daniel first introduced me to his parents, Margaret immediately made it clear that I was not good enough for her son. I come from a working-class background, while Daniel's family is wealthy. Margaret constantly made cruel comments about my job as a nurse, saying that Daniel deserved better than someone who cleans up after other people. But Daniel and I loved each other, and we got married anyway. Daniel and I met at a charity event. He came with friends, and I was volunteering as part of my nursing program. We connected immediately because we both loved helping people. Daniel was different from other men I had dated. He was kind, and he didn't care that I didn't come from money. He admired how hard I worked to become a nurse. Our relationship developed quickly. Within a year, we were already talking about marriage. That was when I officially met Margaret. Daniel warned me that his mother could be difficult, but I was not prepared for how cruel she actually was. The first time I went to their house, Margaret looked at me like I was dirt. She barely shook my hand and forced a tight smile. During dinner, she bombarded me with questions about my family, my job, and my future plans. With every answer I gave, she became more and more cold. After dinner, I overheard her telling Daniel that he could find a much better woman. She even mentioned the daughter of one of her friends who was studying to become a lawyer. Daniel stood up for me, but I realized then that Margaret would always be a problem. Despite her disapproval, Daniel and I got engaged a few months later. Margaret was furious. She tried to convince Daniel to postpone the wedding, claiming we were too young. When that didn't work, she attempted to organize an enormous, expensive wedding that we couldn't afford. Daniel refused, and we had the small wedding we had. Margaret was angry the entire time. She even gave a wedding speech where she said she hoped I would rise to their level by becoming part of their family. It was humiliating, but Daniel and I tried not to let her ruin our day. After the wedding, Margaret continued causing problems. She tried to set Daniel up with other women, even though we were married. She said Daniel had lowered himself by choosing me, and that our children would be ordinary because of my background. Daniel always defended me, which only made Margaret hate me more. She showed up at our house without warning and criticized everything. The furniture, the food, the way we lived. One time, she even brought a woman she claimed to have run into by accident, and tried to introduce her to Daniel. Daniel was so furious that he didn't speak to his mother for several weeks. Despite all of Margaret's hostility, Daniel and I were happy. I became a senior nurse at the hospital, and Daniel was doing well at work too. We wanted a child, but we decided to wait until we were ready. When we announced that I was pregnant, Margaret wasn't happy. She only said she hoped the baby would look like their side of the family. She came with me to every doctor's appointment, even though we asked her not to. She questioned everything, from my choice of doctor to the vitamins I was taking. The closer my due date got, the worse she became. She wanted me to live with her during the last month of pregnancy, saying she didn't trust Daniel to take care of me properly. I refused, and we had a huge argument. The labor was very difficult. I was in labor for 36 hours, but Daniel stayed by my side the entire time. When Oliver was born, we were overjoyed. He had thick dark hair, just like Daniel. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. I was exhausted but happy. Daniel called our families to tell them we would be coming home soon. Margaret announced that she would come help us, even though we told her we wanted time alone with our baby. When Daniel drove us home, we were in shock. All of my belongings had been thrown onto the lawn. My clothes, books, and nursing uniforms were scattered where the neighbors could see them. Margaret was standing in the doorway with a smug smile. I was frozen in horror. Daniel was furious. He told me to stay in the car with Oliver while he dealt with his mother. When Daniel walked toward the house, Margaret screamed, "How dare you come back with her, you cheating woman!" She shouted, "I always knew you weren't worthy of my son. And now I have proof." Daniel was confused. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. Margaret pointed at Oliver in the car. "That baby isn't yours. Children that ugly have never been born into our family. She cheated on you and is trying to trap you with another man's child." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Daniel tried to explain, but Margaret wouldn't listen. She kept yelling that I was worthless, and that she was protecting her son from a cheating woman. I got out of the car, holding Oliver, crying and begging Margaret to stop. She only screamed more insults. Daniel finally had enough. He told Margaret to leave our house. She refused, claiming she came to help her son and grandson, forgetting that she had just said Oliver wasn't Daniel's child. Daniel went inside, brought out her suitcase, and said, "You need to leave. You are not welcome here anymore." Margaret thought Daniel would choose her side. He didn't. "Mom, you need to go," Daniel said firmly. "What you did is unforgivable." Margaret realized she had lost. She grabbed her suitcase and left, screaming that she would come back to save Daniel and Oliver from me. After she left, Daniel and I brought Oliver inside and laid him in his crib. Then we talked about everything that had happened. Daniel was furious with his mother. He couldn't believe she accused me of cheating and tried to throw me out of my own home. We spent hours carrying my belongings back inside and cleaning up. Daniel's phone was flooded with calls and messages from Margaret and other relatives. Margaret had already spread her lies about my supposed affair. That night, after Oliver fell asleep, Daniel and I decided what to do next. We agreed that Margaret would no longer come to our home or have any contact with Oliver until she apologized and proved that she could behave like a normal human being. Daniel said he would not speak to his mother for a while. The next day, I called my parents and told them everything that had happened. They were furious and offered to come stay with us to help. We agreed. A week passed after everything happened, and the situation was still very difficult. Margaret kept calling and texting. One moment she apologized, the next she accused me again. Daniel's father tried to make peace, but most of Daniel's relatives believed that we were being too harsh on Margaret. They said she was just trying to protect her son, and begged us to forgive her for the sake of the family. Others understood why we were angry and supported our decision to keep our distance from Margaret until she learned how to behave like a civilized person. I felt sorry for Daniel. This was supposed to be a happy time with our newborn son, but instead he was dealing with family drama and his unstable mother. I tried to support him and take care of Oliver, but I could see how much this was affecting him. I was angry too, and deeply hurt. I had always tried to be a good wife to Daniel, and now I was also a good mother to Oliver. The fact that Margaret attacked me so viciously and tried to destroy my family was beyond my understanding. We were both struggling emotionally, dealing with the joy of having a baby while also enduring this madness with my mother-in-law. Daniel tried to be strong for me and Oliver, but I could see that he was exhausted and at his breaking point. We barely slept, and not just because of the baby. Daniel considered filing a lawsuit against Margaret and getting a restraining order, but he worried about how the family would react. We didn't want to escalate the situation. We even discussed moving to another city to escape the drama. But we liked our jobs and our home, and it felt unfair to change our entire lives because of Margaret's behavior. Daniel tried talking to his father, hoping he would reason with Margaret, but his father refused to get involved. I think he was used to Margaret always getting her way, and didn't want to confront her just to maintain the appearance of peace. I had always believed that family was important, but now I wasn't so sure. Is it really worth maintaining a relationship with someone who can be so cruel, even if she is your mother-in-law? Daniel and I talked about going to family therapy to deal with everything. We knew we had to stay united, but it was difficult when we were both so tired and emotionally drained. And with a newborn, it was hard to find time for therapy. A week ago, things got even worse when Margaret showed up at Daniel's workplace. She caused a scene, crying and telling everyone that Daniel was depriving her of her grandson. Daniel's coworkers were shocked, and his boss was very unhappy about the disruption. Daniel had to explain the situation to his boss, which was humiliating and extremely difficult. Then Margaret started calling my workplace. She told my coworkers that I was a bad mother, and that I had given birth to a child from another man. My supervisor was understanding, but it was humiliating for me, and I was afraid it might affect my job. Then Daniel's sister Sophie, who was 27, got involved. At first, she took Margaret's side and believed her lies about my supposed affair. She called Daniel and said horrible things, accusing him of choosing me over his real family. Daniel was devastated because he and Sophie had always been close. But then something unexpected happened. One day, Sophie came to our house when Daniel wasn't home. She said she wanted to see the baby herself. I was nervous, but I let her in. As soon as she saw Oliver, her attitude changed completely. She immediately saw how much he looked like Daniel, and realized that Margaret had lied. Sophie apologized to me and promised to talk to the rest of the family. She became our strongest defender, standing up for us against Margaret and the relatives. This caused a major conflict in Daniel's family. People took sides. Margaret was furious that Sophie was now supporting us. She started spreading rumors that Sophie was jealous because she wasn't married and didn't have children. This was extremely painful for Sophie. Things became even more insane when Margaret hired a private investigator to follow me. She was convinced that if I had cheated once, I must still be cheating. The investigator followed me to work, to the grocery store, even to my doctor's appointments. It made me feel intimidated and humiliated. When Daniel found out, he was furious. He confronted Margaret and threatened to take legal action and get a restraining order if she didn't stop. Margaret cried and claimed she was just trying to protect her son, but Daniel no longer believed her. The final straw was when Margaret tried to sue us. She contacted a lawyer and wanted to obtain legal visitation rights to see Oliver. Fortunately, the lawyer told her she had no chance, especially since Oliver was still a newborn, and she had never even seen him. All of this stress started to seriously affect my health. I began having problems with lactation, and was losing weight rapidly. My doctor became concerned that I might be developing postpartum depression. Daniel insisted that I take a leave from work to recover. Daniel's father finally realized how serious the situation was. He came to our house and apologized for not stepping in earlier. He promised to deal with Margaret and support our decision to keep her away from our family. It has now been 3 months since Oliver was born, and the situation is finally starting to calm down. Margaret calls and texts much less frequently. Most of Daniel's family understands our position. Sophie visits us regularly and has become a wonderful aunt to Oliver. So, did I do the wrong thing by supporting Daniel, throwing his mother out, and refusing to let her see her grandson? Before we continue, I suggest writing your opinion in the comments right now and answering the author's question. Personally, I believe she did absolutely the right thing, and honestly, I have nothing more to add. The mother-in-law's behavior was completely unacceptable. Let's find out what happened next. Update 1. 6 months have passed since my first post, and during that time, so much has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It was a long period of emotional ups and downs, and I am incredibly grateful to this community. Here is what happened. Margaret's behavior became even worse. She started going to our neighbors and spreading lies about us. She said we were bad parents and that they should call Child Protective Services. Some neighbors believed her and started giving us strange looks. Others came to us and told us what she was doing. It was humiliating and exhausting. Our private life became the subject of gossip throughout the entire neighborhood. One day, Margaret came to our house while Daniel was at work. She pounded on the door and screamed for hours. I was terrified, holding Oliver and trying to calm him while Margaret shouted outside. I called the police, but Margaret left just before they arrived. The officers took a report, but said there wasn't much they could do since she was already gone. After that terrifying incident, we decided to install security cameras around the house. The stress started affecting Daniel's job. His boss called him in and said Daniel seemed distracted and that his work performance was suffering. Daniel had to explain everything that was happening with his mother. His boss was understanding but warned him that he needed to focus on work, or it could affect his position at the company. This added financial pressure to an already tense situation. My parents came to stay with us to help. They were amazing with Oliver and gave Daniel and me a chance to rest and spend some time together, but Margaret hated this. She started spreading rumors that my parents were trying to turn Daniel against his real family. She even went as far as calling my father's workplace and claiming he was an alcoholic and shouldn't be around children. This was of course a lie, but my father had to answer questions from his employer, which was humiliating for him. Things got even worse when Daniel's cousin Lily got married. We were not invited to the wedding because Margaret told the entire family that we didn't want to participate in family events. She claimed we thought we were better than everyone else just because we had a child. Daniel was heartbroken. He and Lily had been close as children, and he had been looking forward to her wedding. Sophie tried to defend us at the wedding. She told everyone the truth about what Margaret had done, how she accused me of cheating and tried to throw me out of my own home. This caused a massive scandal at the reception. Some relatives sided with us and said Margaret had gone too far. Others still believed her lies and accused Sophie of betraying the family. The argument escalated so badly that Lily, the bride, burst into tears. Her new husband became furious and ended the reception early. Later, Lily called Daniel in tears, saying her wedding had been ruined because of our family drama. Daniel felt horrible, even though it wasn't his fault. After the wedding disaster, Daniel's family split in two. Some relatives completely cut contact with us, blocked us on social media, and ignored our calls. Others reached out, apologized, and said they believed us. Daniel's uncle Robert, Margaret's brother, especially supported us. He said he had always known his sister was difficult, but never imagined she would go this far. Then Margaret tried a new tactic. She suddenly became very calm and polite. She stopped calling and texting constantly. Instead, she sent long messages saying she had reflected on her behavior, realized her mistakes, and wanted to make peace for the sake of her grandson. She wrote that life was too short for hatred, and that she wanted to start over as a family. Daniel didn't trust this sudden change. And neither did I after everything she had done. It was hard to believe she had truly changed. Still, Daniel hoped that maybe his mother had finally realized how far she had gone. She asked to meet in a public place, just the three of us to talk things through. After many discussions, Daniel and I agreed, but only under strict conditions. The meeting would be in a cafe, for a limited time, and Oliver would not be present. At first, the meeting seemed calm. Margaret apologized for some things she had done, though she never fully admitted accusing me falsely or trying to destroy my reputation. She cried, said she felt lonely, and claimed she was afraid of losing her son forever. Daniel told her clearly that if she ever wanted to have any relationship with our family, she had to respect me as his wife and stop spreading lies. Margaret nodded, agreed, and promised to change. For a brief moment, we felt hopeful. That hope lasted exactly 2 weeks. One afternoon, Daniel received a call from Child Protective Services. Someone had filed a report claiming that Oliver was living in unsafe conditions, that I was mentally unstable, and that Daniel was abusive. We were in shock. Social workers came to our home the next day. They inspected the apartment, checked Oliver, asked us dozens of questions, and spoke to our neighbors. It was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. I felt like a criminal in my own home. Fortunately, everything was in perfect order. Oliver was healthy, the house was clean, and there was absolutely no evidence to support the accusations. The social workers apologized and told us the case would be closed immediately. We knew exactly who had done this. Daniel called Margaret and confronted her. At first she denied everything. Then she said she had only expressed concern, and claimed someone else must have exaggerated her words. Daniel lost his temper, and told her she would never see Oliver again. This time, we followed through. We contacted a lawyer and officially filed for a restraining order. We documented everything. The false accusations, the private investigator, the workplace harassment, the police report, and now the false CPS report. Margaret exploded when she received the legal notice. She sent dozens of messages, switching between begging, threatening, and accusing us of cruelty. Then she started posting on social media, writing dramatic posts about how her son had been brainwashed by his wife, and how she was being kept away from her grandson by an evil woman. Some people believed her. Others publicly defended us. The comments turned into online fights, and Daniel eventually deleted his social media accounts to protect his mental health. The restraining order was granted temporarily. Margaret was legally forbidden from contacting us or coming near our home or workplaces. For the first time in months, our home felt peaceful. But Margaret wasn't done yet. She contacted Daniel's ex-girlfriend, Emily. Emily reached out to Daniel, confused, saying Margaret had told her that Daniel wanted to reconnect, that I was controlling and abusive. Emily quickly realized something was wrong and apologized to us. She even offered to provide a statement if needed. Margaret also tried contacting my former classmates and coworkers, digging up anything she could use against me. She even told people that I had trapped Daniel with a pregnancy on purpose. All of this only strengthened our legal case. The court hearing for the permanent restraining order was emotionally exhausting. Margaret portrayed herself as a loving grandmother who was being unfairly punished. She cried, shook, and claimed she was deeply depressed, but the judge wasn't convinced. The evidence was overwhelming. The restraining order was made permanent. Margaret was legally prohibited from contacting us, spreading information about us, or attempting to see Oliver. Daniel broke down in tears after the hearing. I had never seen him cry like that. It wasn't relief, it was grief. He was mourning the loss of the mother he wished he had. Life slowly started to improve. Daniel's work stabilized. My health improved, and my doctor confirmed that I was no longer showing signs of postpartum depression. Oliver was growing beautifully, smiling more every day. Sophie remained by our side throughout everything. She cut contact with Margaret completely and told her she would not tolerate any more lies or manipulation. Daniel's father moved out of the house and temporarily lived with his brother. He said he needed space to think and admitted that he had enabled Margaret's behavior for years by staying silent. Some relatives eventually apologized to us. Others disappeared from our lives forever. And honestly, we were okay with that. We learned that peace is more important than pretending everything is fine just to keep family together. Just when we thought the worst was over, something unexpected happened. One evening, Daniel received a call from the hospital. Margaret had been admitted after collapsing at home. The hospital called late in the evening. They informed Daniel that Margaret had been admitted after collapsing at home. Her neighbor found her unconscious and called an ambulance. Daniel was silent for a long time after the call. I could see the conflict in his eyes. Anger, fear, guilt, and sadness all mixed together. Despite everything Margaret had done, she was still his mother. We discussed what to do for hours. Legally, Daniel was not required to visit her because of the restraining order, but emergencies are complicated. In the end, Daniel decided to go to the hospital alone. Oliver and I stayed home. Margaret had suffered a mild stroke. The doctor said stress and untreated high blood pressure were likely contributing factors. She was conscious but weak. When Daniel entered her room, Margaret started crying. She said she thought she was going to die without ever seeing her grandson again. She apologized, this time more sincerely than ever before. She admitted she had been wrong, that her obsession had destroyed everything, and that she needed help. Daniel listened quietly. He told her that he hoped she would recover, but that he could not forget everything she had done. He said protecting his wife and son would always come first. Margaret asked if she could see Oliver even just once. Daniel said no. He told her that trust, once broken so badly, could not be repaired overnight. He said maybe, someday in the distant future, under strict conditions and only with professional supervision, things could change, but not now. Margaret cried but didn't argue. For the first time, she seemed to understand that she had lost control. After the stroke, Margaret was transferred to a rehabilitation center. Daniel's father returned home to care for her. He called us and apologized again for everything. He said the doctors strongly recommended psychiatric help for Margaret, and this time she agreed. Weeks passed. Margaret did not contact us. Through Daniel's father, we learned she had started therapy and was taking her medication regularly. She asked about Oliver, but respected the boundaries. Daniel and I also started therapy together. It helped us process everything we had been through and strengthened our relationship even more. 6 months later, our lawyer informed us that Margaret had officially complied with all conditions of the restraining order without violations. This was the longest period of peace we had experienced. Daniel still hasn't allowed contact between Margaret and Oliver. And honestly, we don't know if he ever will. That decision will depend on years of consistent, healthy behavior. Not words, not tears, not promises. Some people say we are cruel. Others say we are strong. But when I look at my son sleeping peacefully in his crib, I know we made the right choice. Sometimes, protecting your family means walking away, even from those who are supposed to love you the most.